Hello, this is Mike Hathorn, and welcome to 3D Vermont 2016. Hopefully before you came to the tutorial training, you have already downloaded Trimble SketchUp. So if you haven't done so, please go to sketchup.com and download SketchUp now. Once you've downloaded SketchUp, you're going to open it up, and you can choose a template. I usually work feet and inches, and if you like to know where the horizon is, you can choose feet and inches and it will give you a green field with a blue sky. So I'm going to choose that one, and then I'm going to stretch the screen out. They have a person in the middle of SketchUp that gives you size reference, so I'm going to delete her because when you're modeling for 3D printing, you don't want any extra faces, and she's actually a two-dimensional picture. So if you print something and that happens to be inside your building, it'll mess up the print. One thing I noticed in the 2016 version of SketchUp is that the add location, which you see right here on my toolbar, is not on the toolbar. So you need to add it. So if you go to View and then Customize Toolbar, you can scroll down and find the Add Location button and move it to your toolbar, and it will throw it in there. There may be other ones that you'll want to add later on, but that's really step one, is making sure you have the add location. You may want some of the solid tools later on, but we're going to start with just add location. From here, we want to make sure that our SketchUp has everything we need. So we're going to go to the extension warehouse. When the extension warehouse opens, there's a bunch of things that you need to have within, like SketchUp to STL will export your .skp file as a .stl file, which can be used on most 3D printing software. So the first thing you need to do is you need to sign in, and signing in for the 3D warehouse, you can use your Google password. We're a Google school, so I just use my school email and password to sign into the extension warehouse. From here, you're going to download SketchUp to STL, and if you're on a school network, sometimes these take a little bit to load, so take your time. And then you're going to install. You want to add the extension, yes, and the extension's been successfully added. And then usually this changes to uninstall, which it just did, uninstall. And then when you go back, hit the home button, you also want the TTlib2. This is a library of scripts that allow you to use Solid Inspector and Solid Inspector 2. So I'm going to install the TTlib, so it gives us the scripts that we need. This extension has not been marked as being compatible with your version of SketchUp. You may experience usability issues. This is common for the beginning. SketchUp's starting to have pay options for certain extensions, but we're going to just trust that it still may work. And I've used it, and it's been fairly successful in 2016. So after that's done, we're also going to install Solid Inspector. So you search Solid Inspector, and this is the plugin that works with the library of scripts. And I'm actually going to install Solid Inspector 2 because it does some of the work for you that Solid Inspector 1 doesn't do. So we'll install this. And same thing, it may not be compatible with this version, but so far so well with this working. And then it's installed. And that should be enough to get us up and running. If you're wondering where Solid Inspector is, it goes to the tool, and then it's at the very bottom, and that will kind of tell you if your model is ready to print. Another thing you can do when you upload your model, you can upload it to the 3D warehouse and check the box that says for 3D printing, and they have software now that will turn your model into 3D printing. This is new, it wasn't available last year, and it will really help save some time for those of you who don't have a lot of time to make sure your models are printable. SketchUp will take care of that for you. So we're going to start with add location. And I have pre-added Wilder, Vermont. This is one of our old elementary schools. And I'm going to select region, and it brings up these push pins. Normally, in the older versions, you could move these push pins really easily. I've noticed that they're a little quirky now, and sometimes I'm not going to move it because sometimes it moves it too much or too little. It doesn't give you quite the fine grabbing that it used to. So I'm just going to grab this full screen. And this is the same as past models. It throws it into your model. From here, the logical thing would be to grab the pencil tool, line tool, and start drawing around your building. But what you'll find is if you start doing that, you'll have things that aren't necessarily 90-degree angles. SketchUp does do a good job of showing you when you're parallel, but what it shows you is when you're parallel to the axis lines. This axis point right here is not on a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to back up, erase those lines, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move these axis lines. So also the axis, you may need to go to Customize Toolbar and grab the axis tool. I don't remember if that was preloaded, but you're going to want the 3 arrows. So I'm going to grab the axis toolbar. I'm going to zoom in on a corner, click once, release, zoom in on the other corner, click a second time, release, and then I'm going to do the last corner. And this gives us to where we can now work with the rectangle tool, because you really don't want to use the line tool too much in SketchUp unless you have something that's not on a 90-degree angle. And remember, these flyover pictures are not going to be perfect because they're taking an angle photo of your building. So if you feel like you're a little bit off, don't worry about that, because you're probably right and it's probably a skewed picture. So you're going to want to make sure you're making the building how you know it is, not how the overhead view makes it look. And then I'm going to start with the rectangle tool, and I'm going to get the basics shape of the main part of the building, and then I'm going to add in a couple of the extensions that it has, and then I'm going to erase the midlines. This gives me a flickering base of where my building can grow, and it flickers. Anytime there's flickering in SketchUp, it means there's 2 planes intersecting with each other. So we have the picture intersecting with our first plane. If you use the push-pull tool, instantly that flickering goes away. So you can see that that's gone. So going back here, I'm going to use the push-pull tool, and I've gone out and I've measured this building, and it's a 2-story building with a little bit of an exposed basement, and it's roughly 26 feet in height. So I'm going to put the 26 feet into the bottom corner and then hit enter. So to back that up, I'm going to start push pulling, which SketchUp's a click and release. So I click once, I release, I start dragging, and you'll notice in the bottom corner it says 12 feet 9 5/16 inches. I'm just going to type in 2, 6, and then the foot sign and hit enter, and it will raise it to the height that we want. And then I'm going to use the orbit tool. The nice thing about SketchUp is if you are near a road, you may already have pictures preloaded in their software. So I'm going to click on the front face and see if there's any preloaded images. So I'm going to add photo texture, and it instantly goes to that road. So here's the building that I'm doing. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I actually need to zoom out a touch now. And from this, the grab button used to be right here. For some reason, some of the changes, I have a small laptop computer I'm using, so I have to stretch it out a little bit. I'm going to click select region, and this is similar to the last part we did, and I'm going to do underneath this awning because that's where I measured the 26 feet all the way down to the ground. And you're just going to move one of these push pins at a time. And then once you get it in, you're going to grab, and it will throw that image onto your building. From here, this is clearly not a perfect image for this, but it can really give you a good idea of where everything is. So if I want to start saying, okay, here's where the entrance of the building is, I can draw a rectangle around that and block that section off. And then I can say, okay, I need the bottom basement line. Draw a line, and once it's on the green axis, you know it's parallel. You can hold shift and you'll notice it gets darker, and that allows you to line it up there. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side. And the inferencing in the new 2016 is really good. So when you keep drawing across, you'll notice you'll get dotted lines that help you with where everything is. I use those regularly. From here, you may want to start drawing in individual windows or some of the detail work of the side. So I'm going to start with, this is a piece of the building that is just push-pulled just a little bit. It's about a 4-inch little detail to the building. And this doesn't add much right now when you're looking at it, but when you print this building, little details like that make a big difference. The one thing, unless you have a printer like a U-print or a Mojo that has dissolvable fill filament, then you're going to want to make your windows a specific way. So I'm going to start with the windows, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. And then for this window, I'm just going to push it in 6 inches. If I print this to scale of a 400:1 scale, this is going to be a fairly small building. It'll be about 2.5 to 3 inches long by 1.5 to 2 inches wide. By pushing the window in 6 inches without any other details, it looks really good. It prints well. If you have a Mojo or a U-print printer where you can actually draw in the window frame pieces, I'm actually going to delete that. If you can draw in the window frame pieces and pull them out, because on this building they're actually pulled out, then that will look great. The problem is most of us don't have those printers. Those run in the multi-thousands. U-prints right around $20,000, where the MakerBot printers that I use are a couple grand. They won't print this well. If I use supports, it'll make a mess. I want to try to print as little as possible with supports. So I'm going to use the push-in method. And once you make one that you've pushed in, you can click once, touch the other window, and click again. And that'll make sure that window is the exact same depth as the other. And then once you've done it a couple times, you can just double click and it will automatically put it to that window. So as we start modeling this building, we realize that it's starting to come together. Things on the image aren't exactly where the windows are, but you want to make sure that your lines are right. Because if you try to use a line tool, you'll notice up here the windows are really skewed. You don't want the windows to look wrong, so you're going to want to use the rectangle tool. When you go to Window, Styles, Edit, by axis, you want to make sure most of your building shows the red, green, and blue parallel lines. So this is kind of step one, is getting the images on your building, starting to add windows and details. So for our first training, this is really where I'm hoping people can get to. So you can go back and teach your students how to add the location and start modeling your building. And next month, we'll work on how to add in roof lines and stairways and overhangs and getting into more of the detail work of the 3D models. Thank you. Good luck. Happy modeling.